Hello, everyone. Today I have Miss Qualls joining us to go over some content in regards to work citing. You have an ethics essay that you will be responsible to complete by the end of this week. Ms. Qualls is a literary specialist and she will be giving you resources and tips on how to correctly submit your assignment. Thank you for joining us today, Ms. Qualls.
Hi, students. As Dr. Smith stated, I'm Miss Qualls, and I'm a literary specialist, also known as a librarian. And I'm going to kind of give a refresher on some of the things that your instructor has covered about ethics. Since you have an assignment, kind of a research assignment about ethics and ethical dilemmas, I'm going to be showing you and walking you through the proper steps on how to do that. Because as you advance beyond high school, um, citation is going to become your friend. It's going to be very important, and your professors won't accept your work if you don't have it properly cited. Because if you don't have it properly cited, that means that you have plagiarized or taken someone else's work. So I'm going to walk you through how that process goes. So I'll be sharing my screen with you to kind of show you um, the different steps. All right. So the first thing we have is a survey, and I'm going to walk you through this survey. All right. So, having talked about ethics, there are some questions here. Some of these items you may know about, some of the items you may not know about, but I just want you to give your honest opinion on what you think about some of these ethical dilemmas. All right. So, the first one, explain. Do you think suicide is a crime? I want to know yes or no and why. Um, you think taking your own life, should you be punished for that, or is that just something that happens? A lot of different people feel differently about suicide, so I want to know your thoughts on that. Right to the next thing, and this is something you may have seen and you may not. If you saw your friend cheating on a test, would you report him? Would you tell on him, or would you um, just let it slide? Would you try to get answers from him? What are your how much academic integrity do you have? So I want to know what you think about that. I'm a big thing. There are a lot of people on the UNOS list. That's the global list for people that are waiting for organs. And so I want to know, do you think donating organs is morally justified? A lot of people are afraid to become organ donors because they think if something tragic happens to you, the doctors are not going to try to save your life and they're going to just let you die because you're an organ donor. And so um, a lot of people don't donate because of that fact. And another reason too, some on the black market in other countries, they also sell organs. So what do you think about being an organ donor? Right. So the next one we have euthanasia. Do you think it's justified? Would you kill a person for mercy, what they call mercy killing? So, say for instance, your grandmother has terminal cancer and she's in pain, she's suffering, and she decides that she doesn't want to live anymore. So, the doctors assist her in giving her some medication that will end her life. So, in that instance where someone is terminal, do you think that it's okay for a doctor to assist in that? Is that it? Yes or no? And tell me why. And then the last thing, abortion, and that's a hot topic all the time. Um, do you think abortion, what does that mean? Does a woman have the right to choose? As you know, there are a lot of reasons why women choose to have abortions. The pregnancy could be the result of a rape. Um, it could be a person that was too young. It could be out of wedlock. You don't have the financial means to support them, or numerous reasons why people choose to have abortions. Um, some people to the left think it's okay. Some people to the right don't think um, that it's okay to do that. So I want to know, um, what are your thoughts on that? So you answer the questions the best you can. There is no right or wrong answer, and then you will turn that in, and then we'll analyze what you guys thought about these different ethical dilemmas. Okay. All right, ethics. So, what is ethics? Ethics is a set of principles dealing with what is morally right or wrong. Ethics also provides a standard of conduct or of code of behavior. And code of behavior means that how you should act in a given situation. Ethics also help healthcare workers analyze information in order to make the right decisions. So, in any healthcare profession that you decide to go in, um, you are bound by a code of ethics. So that's a set of rules that your profession says these are the things that you will do, and these are the things that you should not do that are against the law. And so we all have ethics that we are supposed to follow. Right. So there are some ethical dilemmas, and we won't go through them all. And I'll talk about some of them towards the end. But euthanasia, again, like we said before on the questionnaire, um, should someone help you to end your life? Right. So confidentiality of AIDS diagnosis. So in the event that you're diagnosed with AIDS, whose business is that? Would you want everybody to know? Should you have to report that to your employer? Should you have to tell your friends at school? Should you have to tell somebody at your church? Um, or should that be kept confidential and nobody should know about your AIDS diagnosis? Okay. Use of aborted fetuses in research. So, dead fetuses, should they be able to use those to further medicine? Continuing life support, that's a big one. So, in the event that life is unsustainable and you're kept alive by mechanical means, um, once the doctor has determined that that treatment is futile, meaning it's not going to help sustain your life anymore, should the family be able to decide that this person should live on life support forever, or should they have to go ahead and withdraw care, which means to take them off life support, or in layman's terms, to turn the machine off? Right? Expensive treatments and payments. Cancer is a big one that costs a whole lot of money. You can run up the $1 million bill of having a transplant. If somebody's not able to pay for it, should the hospital still have to treat them or perform these life-saving measures? A lot of people don't have insurance, or some people that do have insurance, they are underinsured, meaning they may have medical, but they don't have dental. So they may not be able to pay for everything that they need. So should a hospital at that point still give them the treatments that they need to be able to sustain life, even though they cannot pay for it? Okay. Legal issues with miracle marijuana use. This is going to be coming up on the ballots and elections coming up soon. Should it be legal? And what in some states it already is legal, but they want to make it legal in all 50 states. So is that something you agree or disagree with? Cloning. Um, they've tried it once. They tried to clone a sheep. It wasn't necessarily successful. Some people say cloning is good, but say someone needs a new heart, you can make another one and that person might live longer. But some people say that's playing God and trying to create people. So there's so many ways that you can go with that. The same thing, genetic research and stem cell research too. So there's just tons and tons. You can go on and on for days about these different ethical dilemmas. Okay. All right. So I want to talk a little bit about withdrawing life support and resolution of conflict with families. Okay. This is an example here of what you call a well cited article. Right, this was written by several different people. Jenny Way, who's a resident in internal medicine, Anthony Black, who's an associate professor of medicine, and J. Randall Curtis, who's also associate professor of medicine. Okay, this was published in December the 7th. If you see up here, this is the date, December the 7th, 2002. And then over here to the side, it also gives you, this is a medical journal publishing, and this gives you different articles here that you can also review further about the same topic.
Excuse me, Miss Qualls. Can you share your screen with that article?
Okay. Okay. I apologize about that. Right. So I was saying that the name of this article is Withdrawing Life Support and Resolution of Conflict with Families. This was published by several different doctors, or this is coming from a medical journal. And over here to the side, there's also articles that are cited within this article that also further explains the topic. Okay. So the question that they wanted to research here is what is the best way for the intensive care team to work a to work with the family to decide on a plan of care when withdrawing or withholding life support. So it says a high proportion of deaths in intensive care can occur after withdrawal or withholding of life support. In a survey of critical care physicians, 85% of respondents had withheld withdrawn life support in the preceding year. A U.S. study showed a large increase in the proportion of deaths in intensive care that were preceded by a decision to withhold withdrawal life support from 50% in 1987 to 88 to over 90% in 1992 to 1993. In many countries, most deaths in intensive care are preceded by a decision to withdraw or withhold life support, although the proportion of deaths preceded by withdrawal versus withholding varies. Although limitation of life support before death is common in most intensive care units, there are wide variations in approaches to the end of life. In a survey of 131 intensive care units in the United States, the proportion of deaths in which life support was withheld varied from 0% to 67%, and the proportion of deaths after withdrawal of life support varied from 0% to 79%. These wide variations suggest that the need for increased consensus on best practice for managing deaths in intensive care units. In this article, we review the empirical research that can guide physicians in deliberations on whether to withdraw life support, maximize patient and family involvement in the decision making process, and negotiate conflicts that may arise. Okay. All right. So, first of all, life support. When we talk about life support, you may say, Ms. Crawford, what is that? So, life support is where you are put on a ventilator, and that is what is helping you to breathe. Of course, when your heart stops or you're not breathing, then you're considered dead. So, how do I know all this? Well, alongside of being a teacher, I'm also a respiratory therapist, and that's part of what I did in the hospital when patients were no longer having a great quality of life. The family would decide to withdraw care from them, or they would have a DNR in place, a do not resuscitate order, and they would say, in the event that I'm my quality of life is no longer great, please don't keep me alive on this machine. And so that becomes a big struggle, a power struggle, and a battle, especially if there's a DNR not in place, because some people see it as when you were drawing support from someone, that means oh, I just killed my family member. Well, or we're playing God. Maybe we just need to hold on another day, or hold on another week, or hold on another month. There's numerous cases. There's one that's pretty famous in California where this young lady was on life support for 2 years. The doctors and they had to actually go to court and get a federal judge to say this person is no longer living. They are clinically dead. You have to take this young lady off this life support, and the family didn't want to do it. And so this battle raged on for about 6 or 7 months till a final decision was made. And that happens in real life all the time, that people just don't know how to let go, and they want to keep this person saying that this is what's going to keep them alive, when in actuality the disease process has already taken them away, and they have a hard time letting go. So this would be a great example of something to add to your research about withdrawing life support. So I'm going to go to another one. Right, which talks about cloning. It says cloning humans, biological, ethical, and social considerations. Okay, so this article was published by the National Academy of the United States, National Academy of Sciences of the United States of America. And this was written by Francisco J. Ayala. And so I'm not going to go through all of this, but I'm going to read the abstract to you. It says, there are in mankind two kinds of heredity, biological and cultural. Cultural inheritance makes possible for humans what no other organism can accomplish. The cumulative transmission of experience from generation to generation. In turn, cultural inheritance leads to cultural evolution, the prevailing mode of human adaptation. For the last few millennia, humans have been adapting the environments to their genes more often than their genes to the environments. Nevertheless, natural selection persists in modern humans, both as differential mortality and as differential fertility. Although its intensity may decrease in the future, more than 2,000 human diseases and abnormalities have a genetic causation. Healthcare and the increasing feasibility of genetic therapy will, although slowly, augment the future incidence of hereditary ailments. Germline gene theory could halt this increase, but at present it is not technically feasible. The proposal to enhance the human genetic endowment by genetic cloning of eminent individuals is not warranted. Genomes can be cloned, but individuals cannot. In the future, therapeutic cloning will bring enhanced possibilities for organ transplantation, nerve cells, and tissue healing, and other benefits. So, what is the ethical dilemma here? This article clearly states that you can clone genes, but you cannot clone people. So, I think it's made very clear to what side of the fence they stand on. Now, they say in the future, maybe it will enhance, they can harvest and grow organs so that the wait for the organ transplant list will be cut down. Nerve tissue, or tissue healing, say you get burnt and they want to grow you some new skin to do a skin graft, that's where they replace your skin. All that kind of cloning can make possible, but I think this person in this article is clearly against it. And so that's something that we will have to see as medical advancements are made. Are we going to be successful in doing this and it's going to work, or there are things going to be put in place to stop it? So this will be another great article that you can add when doing your research. You always want to have articles that are credible, and we're going to get to what those look like and what those are in a few minutes. All right, and so this last article, this was coming from the U.S. National Library of Medicine and the National Institutes of Health, and this talks about abortions, which is another ethical dilemma. This was written by Stephen A. McCurdy. And again, the same thing. When you find scholarly articles, it gives you different forms that it comes in, the PDF or pub reader. It gives you the option to share it. So you said, hey, this is really interesting. You can put it on social media. It also gives you similar articles about the topic and what who wrote it and the year that it was written in. And then it also gives you some other active links, and then it also gives you an active search of what things that you've also looked at. So why did the abortion topic become an ethical dilemma? So it says right here, 4 decades after Roe versus Wade, abortion remains highly contentious, pitting a woman's right to choose against a fetal claim to life. Public health implications are staggering. The U.S. annual total of more than 1 million induced abortions equals nearly half the number of registered deaths from all causes. Sentiments regarding abortions is roughly excuse me, evenly split among the general public. Yet, fundamental debate about abortion is largely absent in the public health community, which is predominantly supportive of its wide availability. Absence of substantive debate on abortion separates the public health community from the public we serve, jeopardizes the trust placed in us. Traditional public health values, support for vulnerable groups, and opposition to the politicalization of science, together with the principle of reciprocity, weigh against abortion. We've aborted lives counted as our other human beings. Induced abortion would be acknowledged as the largest single preventable cause of loss of human life. So because of this, so 4 decades, 40 years ago, this case right here is what brought abortions to the limelight, making it a continuous fight. So some argue that life begins at conception. Some say it's not a baby until it's a fetus. And so you would have to decide, how you feel about that, based on, the circumstances, why the ladies wanting to do this, whether or not you think it's right or wrong. And I don't think this is an issue that's ever going to go away, because so many people on both sides feel so strongly about it. And so, again, this is a good example of a high quality article that you could use in your research. All right, so we keep bringing up the word research. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to walk you through the proper steps of how to cite an MLA. One of my jobs as a librarian, along with helping people do research, is to make sure that we don't steal other people's work and that we give credit to whom credit is due when we are citing things. All right, so how to cite and find reliable sources. Right, so reasons to cite. One, you're avoiding plagiarism, and plagiarism, simply defined, is not stealing or quoting someone else's work. It's also proof that you've done your own research, because trust me, teachers can tell when you try to turn in work that is not yours. And then when you cite something, as I showed you in the previous articles, it can lead you to other great sources on the topic that you're researching. All right, so types of reliable sources, and this is coming from the University of Georgia's library. All right, so a reliable source is one that provides a thorough, well-seasoned theory, argument, discussion, etc., based on strong evidence. Okay? So reliable source is not an opinion. It's not what you think is going to happen. This is credible information that can be backed up. All right, so one type is a scholarly peer-reviewed article or a book. So scholarly articles are written by researchers for students and researchers. Original research, and they have an extensive bibliography. Okay, it can be found in Galileo's academic databases, and also something that you're familiar with, Google Scholar. Google Scholar is a great resource to go and find scholarly or academic articles. Okay, you can also find reliable resources in a trade or professional article or book. Okay, these are written by practitioners in a field to impart practice-oriented information. It also can be found in Galileo databases. Some may be also found through Google or other search engines, but some you may require payment to see the full text. Beware of sources on the internet that look like trade professional articles but don't have reliable content. Okay. So if you're using a scholarly database, it shouldn't charge you a fee. It should be free. So that should be a red flag right there if it's asking you to pay for it. Okay.
Miss
Right.
Quo, I'm sorry. I see when you're presenting, going down the list, I noticed that they have designations as far as gold, silver, bronze, and then there's a little man. And is that an egg where it says Wikipedia? Is that just showing you the validity of the research database?
Yes. So at the bottom where it says Wikipedia, that's just the global sign for Wikipedia. But you're right, and thanks, Dr. Smith, for bringing that point up. Um, these types of reliable sources are ranked in the most reliable all the way down to the most unreliable. So she's right. If you pay attention over here, you see that scholarly articles, mainly for you guys, I would say Google Scholar, you see that it's given a gold medal. You know, the gold medal means that it's the best or you're number one. So this would be the first source that you would try to look for when you're doing research. All right, so the next one, silver. Silver still says you're good. You're coming in second place. So that's your trade of professional articles or books. And then we're going to get you right here, your bronze medal, which is the third best. And that's magazine articles, books, and newspaper articles from well established newspapers. So, well established newspaper would be, in our case, the Houston Chronicle. Okay. So not just the little paper that you see, the green sheet in the grocery store, at the corner store, a well-established newspaper, or the New York Times is another great one that you can read online to find credible articles. Okay. So, um, So, well established newspapers and magazines are written for a general audience by authors or journalists who have consulted reliable sources and vetted through an editor. So, an editor has to approve the things that are put into this newspaper or magazine article. These sources may provide some of the articles online for free. So, like I was saying with the New York Times, that is something that you can access. At some point, they do ask you to get a subscription, but there are they give you a number of articles that you can read for free. Newspapers and magazines often contain both research news stories, editorial opinion pieces that express the views of the writer. It is important to be able to distinguish between them. Beware of sources on the internet that look like reputable magazines and newspapers but don't have reliable content. So you don't want to do the blog about, what somebody thought or what's the latest, because those are not credible. That's just someone giving their opinion. And so that which brings to the next one, website and blogs. You see how low this is on the list. It says that they can be reliable and sometimes unreliable. They can be a hoax or the information can be false. So that's what sincere misinformation means. Researchers and other experts often use blogs as a way to share their knowledge with the general public. But anyone with a computer access can do so too. So that meaning I can create a blog about the life of a daily teacher. I don't have to have a degree. I don't have to have, certificate. I can just get on there and start typing about what I think school teachers' life is like. Those are just my thoughts and opinion that I'm making known to the public. It's up to you as a student to evaluate the quality of what you find online. Online news sources are particularly notorious for false information. Okay. And right here just gives you a document about false and misleading. You can click on that and read that for yourself. Okay. And then the last one is Wikipedia. Everybody wants to go to Wikipedia when you're doing your research topics and writing essays. That is not the thing to use. Wikipedia, you see where it is on the bottom of the list. This is a no-no. Okay. Some of the entries are reliable and some are not. So Wikipedia, anybody can go in there and change and update information. Okay. It is up to you to be able to evaluate. The authors are anonymous. So it's not going to tell you, Dr. Don Joe wrote this from Johns Hopkins Hospital. It's just going to be, I think, enlarged hearts are, terrible for people, but it's not going to tell you who said it. There's no research behind it. There's no statistics. There's no data. There's no trials. It's just someone who got on there and wanted to open up and start talking. So this is something you definitely do not want to cite in turning in a research document or research paper. Wikipedia is definitely not the thing to use. Okay. And these are tips on here that you'll find as you continue to move on. I'm sure they talk about this in your English class too. What reliable sources are and what are not. And I just want to make mention here before I move on. Here, this is from like I said, the University of Georgia's website, but you can always chat with the librarian. You have a librarian on your campus that can answer all of your research and citation questions. There are numerous books on you can follow how to do it. There's also information, MLA information on the websites that you can find on how to properly cite your work. So if you do not know, always don't hesitate to ask. Right. So these are some of the topics that we're going to cover now. The first one, what is a citation? Why should you cite your work? Are there different ways to cite your work? How do you cite a book? How do you cite an encyclopedia? How do you cite a website? Because I know lots of people, you like to, that's the first kind of thing that you go to, looking for different websites. How do you cite a magazine? What is plagiarism? And then what are some examples of that? All right. So what is a citation? A citation is the way you tell your readers that certain material in your work came from another source. So that means that it did not come from you. Whatever it is that you put in your paper, that is not your own words, that is not your work, and that you are using it from someone else. Okay. It also gives your reader the information necessary to find that source again. So as your teacher, if you put in there about what is the importance of organ transplantation, that citation, if I want to read more about it, I should be able to go to whatever citation you have listed and find that book, that magazine, that website, and find it again so that I can further read more about it. Okay, so what does a citation include? And this is what's important. All right, so number one, it's going to have information about the author. So who wrote this, whatever medium or material that you're using, the title of the work. So the title should have a name. Okay, the name and the location that it was published. So was it published in New York? Was it published in New Zealand? Was it published here in Houston? Where was it published? Okay. You're going to have the copy of the source. You're going to have the date. So what year, what month, when was it published? Okay. And the page numbers of the material that you are using. So I got this quote from Dr. Ben Carson on page 171 in the AMA journal. And that's how you tell where exactly precisely where you got it from. A citation is a reference to a published or unpublished source, not always the original source. More precisely, a citation is an abbreviated alphanumeric expression embedded in the body of an intellectual work that denotes an entry in bibliographic reference of your work for the purpose of acknowledging the relevance of the work of others to the topic of discussion. Okay. All right. So when your teacher assigns research projects, you go to books, you use encyclopedias, websites, Discus, which our school does not have, but in other sources to find out what you need to know. Since you're using information created by other people, you have to give them credit. There's just that's the whole thing of citations. You're giving someone credit for work that's already been done, work that is not yours. So this means at the end of your report, or if you were doing a presentation, you tell where you found information, who is responsible for it, and where that information came from. Why should you cite your work? Okay. Citations help you remember where you got your information from, and then you can return to that source for more information or to clarify things that you used. Citations help your readers locate information when they want to do more research. So, someone um, or your teacher might find what you wrote about ethical dilemmas really interesting, and so they want to know more about it. They don't know about that topic. Your citations can lead them back to, so they can go and read more about it. All right, so just as you shouldn't get paid for a job someone else did, you should not take credit for ideas that are not yours. Citing the work lets the reader or the audience know whose ideas you are presenting. For instance, you might be the next upcoming artist, and you wrote some slamming lyrics to a song, but then someone hears you singing, you perform somewhere, and then someone hears you singing, and next thing you know, you somebody else is singing your song, but they don't give you credit for coming up with the words first. You'd be upset. So somebody else is getting paid for something they didn't put the work in. So the same things work with your academic work. You always have to give credit to whose work it is. However, if you make a comment or you give an opinion that are yours and yours alone, you do not need to cite that. So, in the topic of abortion, if you say, well, I feel that abortion is okay as long as the lady gives a good reason. Those are your thoughts. So you don't have to tell me, you don't have to find some kind of scholarly article to back that up, because that's what you think. So therefore, you don't have to cite that. So any work that's not yours, you have to cite. But if you're making a comment about something, you're giving your opinion, which means I think this or I feel this, then you don't have to cite that. Right. So are there different ways to cite your work? Yes. The answer to that is yes. There are lots of different ways to cite. For this purpose of this lecture, we are going to use the MLA format, but there are other ones. There are the Chicago style, there's APA, which, and I'm going to talk about them here. There's many different ways to cite your work. Okay. There are various styles that are used depending on the researcher, the audience, and the purpose for which the research will be used. And so I'm going to give you and go through examples of each one of these. All right. So MLA, what does it stand for? That is the Modern Language Association. Okay, so when do we use MLA? We use it for literature, for the arts, and for humanity. Okay, and this gives an example here. So we're citing the book here, The Wayside School is Falling Down. So we know what are the key points here, key pieces. Louis Sekar wrote this book. The name of the book is The Wayside School is Falling Down. It was published in the city of New York. It was published by Scholastic, and it was published in 2001. Okay, so these are the several key pieces here. So the author's name, the name of the book, the location, who published it, and when. Okay. Another form of citation is the APA, which stands for the American Psychological Association, right? And this type of citing is used for psychology, education, and the other social sciences. So we'll use the same example again. The difference is the placement of the different pieces. Okay, so it starts out the same with the author's name here. But you notice here, when it was published in the MLA form, it's put at the end. But in APA, it's put in parentheses, and it's put in the beginning after the author's name. Then it tells you Wayside School is Falling Down, the difference between MLA and APA. In APA, this is italicized. In MLA, this is underlined. Okay. Then it gives you, again, who, the location of where it was written, and then who it was published by. And I'm just going to make mention of these two. You don't have to worry about these, but they also have Chicago style. All right. And this is used by books, magazines, newspaper, and other non-scholarly publications. Okay. And then Turbian, and this is used by college students. And then it gives you how to cite here. Okay. But for the rest of the presentation, we're going to focus on the style that you need, which is MLA. All right. So, how do you cite a book? To cite a book, you would write the author's last name and then you put a comma. So, here, the author's last name, then you put a comma. And then you go with the first name and then you put a period. Okay. The next piece you need is the name of the book. You always in MLA form, you're going to underline it, and then after that, you put a period. Okay. Then the next piece of information, we have to know where it was published. So in this case, it's New York. And then after that, 2 dots, this is called a colon. Okay. Then you want to know who published it. So in this case, HarperCollins, you're going to put that there, or whatever the name, and you look in the book, whatever name, whoever published it, then that's when you put there. And then you put a comma, and then you're going to put when the book, the copyright date of the book, and after that, you put a period. So again, the form, so the author's last name goes first, and then a comma, and then the person's first name, and then a period, and then the name of the book, which needs to be underlined, and then a period, where it was published, and then then a colon, and then who published it, and then a comma, the year of copyright, and then a period. Okay. Special considerations. If your information takes more than one line, you must double space and indent. And there's an example of this here. So because there were several authors that wrote this book that started to become long, so then you double space to the next line, and you see, remember from elementary, the 2-finger rule, and then you indent, and it goes to the second line. Okay. So important. Where do you find this information? Well, okay, you're telling us I need to cite this stuff, but how do I find the information? If you're looking in the book in this instance, okay, it's going to be found right after the title page. Right, encyclopedia. How do you cite it? An encyclopedia article is cited in this order. So again, we're going to, the format, the author's last name. So in this case, it's Sturgeon. And then a comma, and then the author's first name, which is Theodore, and then a period. Okay. Then the name of the article. So, encyclopedia has lots and lots and lots of information. So you're going to find the name of the article, and that you're going to put in quotations, and then you're going to put a period, and then you close the quotations. Right. The next piece is the name of the encyclopedia. So in this case, it's the Encyclopedia Americana. So you're going to underline that, and then you're going to put a period. Right. Then you need to know what edition it is. So this is the International Edition. You put a period, and then the year that it was copyrighted, which is 1995, and then you close it off with a period. And remember again to pay special attention that if one single line is not enough, and which in this case it was not, you double space and then you tab over, and then you finish the rest of it underneath it. So you notice that this is not, so if you have these perfectly, when you're typing your works cited page, if you have these perfectly aligned underneath each other, then that's wrong. There should be each, if it takes up more than one line, then it should be staggered. All right, so how do you cite online sources? Many times, website information is a little more difficult to find. Many times, the information will be found in a link on the bottom or the side of the pages. Sometimes the contact link has information on the author of the website. So, when you find, remember, a reliable and a credible source online, this is the example of how to cite it. So you're going to put the author's last name. So you see the recurring thing here is you're always going to start with the author's last name first. Okay. And then a comma, and then their first name, and then a period. Okay. The title of the website is going to be underlined. So whatever that happens to be, in this case, is an online research page for middle school students. Okay. And so you're going to underline that, and then you're going to put a period. So another consistent rule: any name of the book, name of a encyclopedia, name of an article, magazine, you are always going to underline that. Okay. Then here, this date right here is the date that it was posted. Or sometimes it may have, someone may have added something to it, so they may have a different date where it's updated. Okay. Then you put a period. And then you're going to put the name of the organization that produced the site. So in the example, it's the Wayne County Regional Education Service Agency. And then you're going to put a period. Right. Then the next date that it will give you is the day that you access the website. So in this instance here, this article was created in 2003, but this person didn't visit the site until the next year in 2004. So this is the second date here is important. This is where you visited the site. And then you put a period. And then the last part is the URL. URL means the web address. So you're going to put this in brackets, and whatever that ends up being, www, http, whatever it starts with, and you want to put the entire URL, and you're going to close the brackets, and then you're going to close it off with a period. So that is how you cite something that's online. And that goes for anything that you find online. You want to have these key pieces of information to be able to cite it. One thing that I didn't say, and I want to go back to, when you're creating your works cited page, just as I said that each citation is going to start with the author's first name, you're also going to want to put them in alphabetical order. Okay. And I should have said that first. But when you're creating your works cited page, no matter what it is, it's always going to have an author's last name. So you're going to make sure that you put those in alphabetical order. So it's not just randomly placed. So if your first, whatever it starts with, you just have to go with the alphabet. So whether it's a G and A, and then you keep going continuously through the alphabet through there when you're creating your citation page. So I just want to make sure that I said that, because I don't think I said that before. Okay. So the next one, how do you cite a magazine or periodical? So I'm walking you through all the possible things that you can use to aid you in your research when you get ready to do your research on your ethical dilemma. There's wide variety of sources that you can use, and I'm going to make sure, I think that I've covered most of all of them, and then you'll know how to cite them. So the next one is magazines, or you may hear them called periodicals. Okay. Magazine and periodical articles are cited this way. All right. So again, you start with the author's last name, a comma, and then the author's first name, and then a period. Right. So then the name of the article. So this one is The Man Who Couldn't Stop Eating. No, this picture doesn't go. I just was showing you example of People magazine that you can use, but this is not the magazine for this article. So I just want to say that. So you're going to do quotations. You put the name of the article, you put a period, and then you close the quotations. Make sure that you pay attention to this important detail, that the period goes inside of the quotations, not after the quotations. So you put the name of the article, you put a period, and then you close the quotation, as you can see here. Okay. All right. So then you're going to put the name of the magazines, whatever that ends up being. Right. In this case, it's the New Yorker, and then you put a period. Then you give the publication date. So when was the magazine published? And then and you're going to write the full date. So the month spelled out, the day, comma, and then the year, the entire year with 4 digits. Then a colon, and then you're going to put the pages of the article that was on. So whatever that range may be. Maybe one page, it may be a range of pages, and then you're going to close it by ending it with a period here. So this is how you cite a magazine or a periodical. All right. So plagiarism. So all of this talk of citation, why do we do it? So we can avoid this word right here, plagiarism. So what is plagiarism? Plagiarism is taking someone else's work and passing it off as your own. This includes copying an encyclopedia article word for word. You borrowing passages from a book, articles, or websites without identifying them, and copying and pasting parts of online articles and handing them in as your work. Plagiarism is stealing. So it's the same thing. It's like you walked in Macy's and stole a polo shirt. It's the exact same thing. You don't do it because your teacher can tell when you have plagiarized someone's work. We know the level of work that you can do. And so when you come with something that doesn't seem like it's your own, we will know. And that's not fair to the person whose intellectual property, who that belongs to. So you don't ever want to be caught in that boat. So just don't do it. It's okay to cite someone else's work, but just give the person credit that came up with the idea. Everything, you have to have some solid facts. Everything can't be with an opinion or a comment of what you think about something. You have to have something to back up those comments. So you want to give credit to that person whose ideas is it is. All right. So if your teacher gave you a page like this, put your name, the title of the work, the artist's name, the size of the work, and then reasons about it. Would this be considered plagiarism if all of these things are all of these things are filled out? The answer is no, because all of the information that you need is right here for you to write down. So this part here is your ideas, but all of this information up here is saying what page number, where you got it from, who wrote it, and all of that thing. So this will not be considered plagiarism. All right, so here's an example. Here's an original quote, and I'm just going to read it to you. It says, "New tracks aside, the challenge is at the bare minimum to bring light and air into this underground purgatory, and beyond that, to create for millions of people a new space worthy of New York, a civic hub in the spirit of the great demolished one, more attuned to the city's aspirations and democratic ideals." This was said by Michael Kimmelman from the New York Times. All right, so this is the original quote, and this is how someone how they paraphrased it. "Besides replacing the railroad tracks, the toughest part is to at least bring air and light to Penn Station. Millions of people in New York are deserving of a new civic hub, constructed in the same essence of the one that was leveled so many years ago. Moving forward with such a development ties in with the city's enthusiasm for beauty and architecture." So as you can see here, this is a poor example of paraphrasing the original quote, because all they did is change the words. But if you look closely, they just about said the same thing. Paraphrasing is when you're putting, you're taking the original quote, and you may change some of it, but you leave some of it the same. And then you still have to give credit for who said it. In this case, this person did not. All they did was change a few words, but this is basically the same quote. So you can see why this is a poor example of how to paraphrase something. All right. And so, in keeping with the theme, here is my work cited page. So I use the MLA handbook from 2016. The University of Georgia's library website, and then also how to format a research paper, which comes from the MLA Style Center. So I gave credit to whose words and work that I used to present this to you today. All right, so I'm going to let Dr. Smith talk to you about your assignment.
All right, everybody. So you will have an ethics essay that will be due on Friday. In the next two slides entitled Ethical Dilemmas, which Ms. Qualls did discuss with you some of those topics earlier in her presentation, you will choose a topic of your choice. In a one-page paper, it can be typed or written in blue or black ink only. If you choose to write it, you will need to take a picture and upload it into Schoology once you've completed it. You will express your stance or opinion on your topic. You must provide cited resources and a works cited page in MLA format. Your final product should be 2 pages in overall. And the ethical dilemmas, again, that Miss Quall, some of those that she did touch on, are the ones that you can choose from in order to do your essay. Euthanasia, confidentiality of AIDS diagnosis, use of aborted fetuses in research, continuing life support, extensive treatments and payments, transplant decisions, legal issues with medical marijuana use, animals and research, genetic research, cloning, and stem cell research. Some of these topics you may have had some personal experience with, and you can add that to your essay as well. But please do not forget what Ms. Quall said. You do need some evidence to back you up on your opinion. So make sure that if you have any questions about works cited or citing your work, that you please ask. And you can also contact Ms. Qualls if you have any questions.
Yes, so my email is laqualls@aldeanisd.org. I am open to answering any questions that you may have about the ethical dilemmas themselves, or like Dr. Smith just said, how to cite them in your paper. You can reach out to me if you don't remember the format. You can also refer back to this presentation so that you can make sure that everything is in order so you'll get proper credit. And I look forward to reading your answers to your surveys to see how you feel about the ethical dilemmas that were presented here today. Thank you so much for your time and have a great day.
Thank you, Ms. Qualls, for joining us, and we do appreciate you giving us a wealth of knowledge. And this is information they could take with them throughout their high school or the rest of their high school career.